Straykids imagines when you are trying to do house chores but your husband just wants you. Bangchan. Yen knelt on the carpet, folding the last batch of freshly washed cloths into neat piles. The room smelled of fabric softener and a hint of Bangchan walked in with his usual mischievous energy, hair messy, wearing a loose white tee that somehow made him look both tired and dangerously charming. Because someone keeps leaving his hoodies everywhere, Yen replied, flicking one at him. He caught it easily, laughing. That's because this smells like you. She rolled her eyes, trying to ignore the way his voice dipped lower when he said that. Flattery won't get you out of helping. Chan smirked. Bangton, she laughed, pulling it off her hair, now a static mess. He grinned, moving closer. You look cute like that. Before she could retort, he gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The laughter faded into something softer. His gaze lingered. Come on, she said weakly, trying to return to folding. If you keep distracting me, I'll never finish. That's the point, he murmured. When she looked, when they finally parted, Yen whispered, You made a mess again. Chan smiled, pulling her into his arm. I'll clean it up later, maybe. Changbin. Yen was on a mission. The dinner dishes had piled up, and she was determined to clear the sink before watching a movie. She had the hot water running. Okay, if I start with the glasses and work my way to the pans, I can be done in. A pair of strong arms wrapped around her waist, instantly still. You smell like dish soap and ambition. I don't like it, he mumbled. Yen leaned back, chuckling. I love you, but you need to move. These pots are not. They can take their time. They are pots. They have no place to be, he argued, turning his head just enough to plant a mischievous kiss right. Threatening me with my own destruction? Bold. He lifted his head, his dark eyes sparkling. He slowly turned her around so she was facing him, pinning her before she could object. He gently dipped his hand into the soapy water, scooped up a handful of suds, and without warning drew a perfect. Yen gasped, a delighted, playful rage filling her eyes. Oh, you are so getting it. She quickly dipped one of her rubber gloved hands into the foam. The kitchen cleanup was utterly abandoned, replaced by a chaotic Sudsy chase that ended predictably with them collapsing into laughter. Iron. The apartment was filled with beautiful leafy green plants, and Yen was making her rounds with a small silver watering can. It was a Ian was sitting quietly at the kitchen counter, scrolling on his phone, watching her work. He noticed the gentle way she inspected the leaves and topped. He set his phone down and walked over to her. Yen was kneeling on the floor, gently pruning a dry leaf from a large hanging pothos. Jeongin did. Your thumb is dirty, he noted softly, looking down at the smug of soil. It's okay, I'm gardening, Yen whispered, leaning her head against his shoulder. No, that's enough, he decided, his voice gently but firm. He carefully separated his hand from hers, lifting her arm and kissed the small. He helped her stand, then took the watering can from her and placed it down softly on the table. You are being bossy again. Yen laughed softly, but she didn't resist. He didn't let her sit down immediately. Instead, he wrapped his arms around her waist and held her tightly, swaying side to side in the quiet living room. What distracting about it? She asked, wrapping her own arms around his neck, sinking into the peaceful hug. He pulled back just enough to look at her. He pulled her closer and gave her a soft, lingering kiss. It wasn't rushed or demanding. It was a deep, sweet expressing of comfort and love. When he finally pulled back, he didn't move away, keeping his hand settled softly on her cheeks. See, better than watering, he murmured, his eyes full of affection. Han. The apartment was a typical Han Jisung disaster zone. crumpled lyric sheet on the coffee table, three empty ramen cups, and a suspicious "I'm leaving," she announced, trying to sound firm, heading for the door. "Your producer Hyung's called. If I don't rescue this basket of clothes, they are going to." Han, who had been sprawled on the floor, staring intently at the ceiling, vaulted upright. "A biological hazard?" He pressed himself flat against the door, his arms spread wide in a dramatic human barricade. He looked like he was protecting a vault of gold. "You think you can just escape?" Han's eyes were wide and glittering with mischief. "My spidey senses detect a lack of necessary spout cuddles, and this is—" Yen sighed, but a smile was already twitching at the corner of her mouth. She pushed gently against his chest. "Honey, move. I'll be back in 30 minutes." Yen stared at the lock, then back at him. "Did you just lock me in for socks?" Han leaned in close, his usually witty energy replaced by— He stepped back just enough to throw his arms around her waist, lifting her clean off the floor. "The world can wait for your incredible laundry skills right now." Yen burst into laughter, resting her forehead against his. He was impossible, ridiculous, and perfect. "Fine, you menace, but you are paying for the pizza." Seungmin. The morning sunlight spilled gently through the kitchen curtains as Yen tied her hair into a messy bun and began her weekend chores. "You've been working since morning," he murmured, his voice low and lazy, the kind that always sent a small shiver down her spine. Yen smiled without turning around. "Because some—" "I'm helping," he said, leaning against the counter with a grin. "I'm supervising." She rolled her eyes, reaching for the mop, but before she could step away— "Where?" she asked, confused. He pointed to her cheek, "Right here," and before she could react, he leaned in and pressed a soft kiss there. Slow, tender. "Seungmin," she gasped, trying not to smile. "You're distracting me. That's the idea," he teased, looping his arm around her waist from behind as she tried to move away. She tried to push his hand away but ended up laughing, the sound echoing around the room. "If I stop now, who'll finish the chores? Not my problem." "Seungmin," she whispered, but her protest melted when he brushed a gentle kiss across her, light and sweet, the kind that made time. She laughed, pretending to glare. "Fine, you win, but you are doing the dishes." He grinned wider, kissing her temple. "Deal." And just like that, the chores didn't seem like work anymore, not with him around to make them feel like love. leeknow. Yen was a serious mission to untangle the horrendous knotted pile of mic cables and headphones wires in the corner of the studio. Lino glided silently into the room. He didn't make a sound, but she felt his presence immediately. A shift in the air pressure. He didn't speak, he just walked. "Weak technique," he murmured, his voice a low, teasing vibration against her ear. "You're trying to force it. You need patience." Yen sighed, tilted her— "I'm educating," he corrected smoothly. "I'm showing you the proper way to handle things." He slowly extended one hand and stopped it just inches from her. "You shouldn't divide your focus," he continued, his tone turning dangerously low. "You can either focus on the wires or you can focus on me." He leaned his head. Yen's grip on the cable slacked. The intensity of his focus was so magnetic that her attention slid completely from the messy wires. "I don't wait," he demanded in a low murmur. She couldn't argue. Minho's patience had run out, and his sudden intensity shattered her concentration. When he finally pulled back, he removed his hands from the chair arms but kept her close. He rubbed his cheek against hers and said, "First the payment, then the—" Before she could respond, Lino scooped her up effortlessly, a teasing glint in his eyes. Without a word, he carried her out of the studio and into the room. Hyunjin. Yen was armed with a spray bottle and a squeegee, tackling the giant living room window. The sun was hitting the glass just right, revealing every single. Hyunjin walked in holding a water bottle and a stopped. He saw Yen focused and stretching, framed perfectly by the sunlight. He didn't speak. Instead, he walked right up to the window and placed his hand flat against the clean glass, directly opposite Yen's face. Yen Hyunjin shook his head slowly, his eyes full of fake tears. He pressed his entire forehead against the cool glass. He looked like a tragic hero. He used his free hand to mime writing a frantic letter against the glass. I cannot reach you, my love, he mouthed dramatically, complete with. Yen burst out laughing, dropping the squeegee onto the carpet. Hyunjin, you are ridiculous. It's just a window. He shook his head. He looked straight into her eyes, and the playful act softened into something genuinely sweet. I missed you, he mouthed. It's been 30 whole minutes since I saw. Okay, my Prince Charming, she giggled, walking to the edge of the large window. She reached up and smoothly unlocked the latch, pulling the window inward just enough. Finally, released from the terrible glass curse, he sighed into her hair, hugging her so close her feet nearly left the floor. He pulled back just a little. When he finally pulled back, he rested his chin on her head. The smudges can wait, he declared. My heart needs immediate attention. Felix. The apartment desperately needed a deep clean. Yen was wrestling with the heavy vacuum cleaner, trying to get into the tricky corner behind the sofa. She was focused, wearing old sweats and concentrating on the dust bunnies when Felix walked out of the bedroom. He paused, listening to the rhythm. He did a quick spin, but when he came back, he was standing directly in her path. Yen had no choice but to sigh and kill the power button. The sudden silence was. Yen couldn't help but smile. That song is keeping me from cleaning the floor. Lex, get out of the way. He stepped closer, his sunshine grin soft. And what's that? She asked, crossing her arms playfully. A tool, he whispered, his voice suddenly going deep and buttery. He leaned in quickly, aiming for her. A miss, she teased, pushing gently on his chest. Felix pouted dramatically, treating the tool collector unacceptable. He caught her face between. No, I pay, Yen promised, her eyes sparkling with fun. This time Felix didn't wait. He moved in, stealing a quick, playful. It was light and sweet. He pulled back fully, looking entirely too proud of himself. Tool collected. It was a worth stopping the music for. The vacuum remained parked defeated in the middle of the room. The rest of the afternoon was cancelled due to an excess of affection. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos.